Shalom, one stuff, so by giving all praise to Yahweh, Bashem Yahshua, Bashem Kakadash, double honors to the apostles of great most and honors to brothers doing the work, the most in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah, or Yahweh, his real name is Yahweh. The Son's true name is Yahweh Shai, and when we pray Yahweh, Bashem Yahshua, meaning in, her meaning the, and Sham meaning names Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. It's real quick, just wanted to do this one because, man, in the spirit, allow me to not come back to a whole heap of mess when I go back to work. But every now and then, you get them situations where it's Satan's just like, yeah, but you're tired, man. It's chill, man. You have a feeling that there's a problem, but don't worry about it. It'll be okay. It'll sort itself out, right? But the spirit was like, nah, just double check that. Just ask the question. You've seen something that doesn't quite look right, double check it. And lo and behold, I'd basically broken something in a critical path, right? And, one of the things, especially when the Lord first, was bringing me into this thing, or first bringing me into the camp, I would always have experiences where on one hand, work, what I was experiencing at work, right, would tie into this truth, right? Which is just like fighting, and in this instance, right, it was just that thing about like, just being diligent on something. Satan is always going to try be there, just being like, man, you're tired, and in fact, that's one of the things about this world. This world very much is about wearing out the saints. Right, let's grab that. All right, this is where is it? Yes, like it's Daniel 7:25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and things change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of times, right? Which is what you see, which brothers are experiencing, man, right? So much extra and excess in this place that, there is just that feeling of just like, ugh, but even as I'm saying, it's one of the things that's coming to mind is that this is part of the battle. This is a part of the battle to, to have to, go to this man and want of all things. And part of that is, working till the point where, you be fatigued, right? And, for instance, like one of the things I've always said is, the Lord has had mercy on me in that I actually like my trade. Right, the trade that I do, I actually get pleasure from doing it, right? Which is why I work on certain projects. The Spirit got on me to put this website together a while back, right? In the hopes that it would help brothers in studying, right? Don't do it as much now, but the fact that you can be watching the apostles and now and when I'd hear a breakdown, bam, I'll put the breakdown in there. Right, in certain places, right, if there was a preset, bam, I'll link it. I'll be like, cool, bam, that's that's for brothers to make it have a link. However, the fact that we're having to do this for other people, we're having to deal with other spirits when doing this, right, is just for in doing whatever it is, right, is what then creates the stress and the hell. Right now, you may be lucky enough to run your own business, but then you got to deal with taxes, right? I saw I got a letter from the tax man the other day, right, being like, yeah, man, you owe us $2,000. I was like, what? I was like, what? But luckily, the spirit, I do think that because I know it was a mistake, but you miss a filing and then now you're having to you miss a filing and now you're having to like send make up phone calls, or maybe you're paying a fine for missing a filing or this or that, right? And it is just non-stop, right? because this is a part of it, to wear out the saints. But that said, we have to fight through it. We have to, overcome those, those demons, right? Pray if we need to, right? And, especially when it comes to the video, sometimes it is just a thing of sending up a prayer, right? And just turning on the camera, okay? Just sending up a prayer, turning on the camera, just, to be like, look, man, let's fight through this, all right? And then after that, right, yeah, we've got each other, right? We've got each other. There's been times when brother, or I've called a brother and I've been like, bro, it's a lot, bro. I'm cooked. Like I'm through right now. Would you be able to do a video with me, right? And then in those instances, like, yeah, bro, cool. What time works for you, or we can do it on this day, whatever, right? Just to help each other out. Right, because at the end of the day, this is this is our primary goal, right? So Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, for there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest, right? So whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, right? And we must needs do this. Me personally, not I say this as a man, right? But for me personally, if I'm slacking in work and this and the other, then I can commonly find that I'm slacking everywhere, right? So I do try and put effort into whatever it is that I'm dealing with. Now there is a balance, right? Because the truth is still the primary, okay? So that's because one can go all the up, one can go all the way the other way, where it's just putting putting all thy might, right, into worldly things, and then basically, and that's taken away from the truth. But it's just you hear about some of the roles that brothers may have. Brothers may have a role where it's like the 12-hour 4 on 4 off shift, right, where and you'll see brothers after that, especially if it's a shift where it's like 4 nights 4 off, 4 days 4 off, right? I mean, we read it in Daniel's 7th chapter. That's like absolutely terrible for your body, right? That is absolutely terrible for your body. And it's the kind of thing that I always remember one of my uncles saying that night shifts is something that you never get used to, and he had been doing night shifts for a very long time. So, that's just this place for you, man. Right? This place is designed to wear us out, but we need to find a way to make sure that the main things that we need to do, we're doing it, right? So this is Colossians 3:23 says, and whatsoever ye do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not unto men. Okay, so doing it heartily, doing things with a good heart, right? In sincerity, right? Because we can all do things and it's not sincere, which the Lord ain't with that, right? The Lord is all about sincerity, right? We have to always be sincere, one with ourselves and one with each other, So let's jump over to Ecclesiastes 11:6. It says, plant your seed in the morning. This is in the NLT, Ecclesiastes 11:6. It says, plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon, for you don't know if profit will come from one activity or another, or maybe both. Okay, so just once again showing diligence, right? Showing diligence, and sometimes you don't know, the results of some of the things that we do. Right. However, when it comes to this truth, we understand, right, how Shai said that he's coming with that reward. Right. This is Revelation 22, is it verse 12? Right. It says, and behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. Right. And that's it. Right. The Lord is coming with a reward. We're laboring and there's a payment at the end of it. But as part of that labor, right, we got to give, diligence. Okay, we got to do as our strength allows. Right, we got to do our best to fulfill our different lots, because each brother has their own lot. Right, every brother has a lot. Right, and it's basically making sure that we can fight and reach and also what I'm looking for, so that we can fight and be the best that we can be as men of the Lord, right? All of the different talents, scriptures talk about talents, all the different talents we've been given, using said talents to further the gospel, right? I'm saying this, even I'm thinking like, man, I need to, really get back on my languages vids, right? I always remember being, in Korean, the lady gave me it was a lamb spot. The lady gave me a book, about sheep, right? And then after a while, I was like, yeah, is that the Lord basically saying, feed my sheep, man? Who knows, right? So, but even still, the different talents that we all have, the different offices and lots that we all have, we must needs to, make use of it, right? So Galatians 6:9, and let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not, right? Patience, right? It says Proverbs 13:4, it says, the soul of the sluggard desireth and hath nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. Okay, and that's it, man. So as always, laws without edifying. Like I said, it was just the Lord just delivered me, Lord delivered me from quite a big issue there, right? And then in the process inspired this video, because literally I was like, I could tell something wasn't quite right, and I just wanted to be lazy and finish up, but the Spirit was like, nah, just check that, right? Just double check that, make sure that that's good, right? And it wasn't good, right? So that's it, man. So as always, edifying. Till next time we say, Shalom.